What's the way they're mostly contacting you right now?
I'm usually meeting folks out in a networking space. I have a monthly networking event, but I'm also actively meeting people who then will, I'll connect with them that way, or it will be like, let me connect you with so-and-so, I know who needs your services, and then I'm referred to them.
Okay, so after you meet them in person, do they email you or you email them?
I'll email them,
So
say,
you-
great to meet you, like, I'd love to set up a call, I know we talked about yada yada, like, when do you have availability? I was doing a lot of the Calendly, but, it's kind of like, let's do it now, kind of thing, putting some urgency behind it.
Sure. What, does that work pretty well? Does almost everybody you meet in person, they follow up with an email, come back and schedule?
It's
Okay.
working really well, however, I'm trying to shift from one-on-one to kind of being able to provide my services at a group level, virtual, record it, and get it out that way. So
So,
it's gonna shift,
live or pre-recorded?
pre-recorded.
Okay. Yeah, well, that's right. you talked
And I
about
will
this.
do in person, like I am contracted into a couple different, nonprofits to come in and do workshops virtually, 2 groups, and so that'll work, but primarily being able to pre-record and get them out that way.
So almost like courses, they're gonna get into courses,
Like
workshops, seminars, all that kind of stuff, summits, have you looked into
Mhm.
summits, all that, okay. So then, you need to, look at, and as an example, I would look at Pat Flynn, and John Dumas, both of them essentially have become, one's a entrepreneur podcast called Entrepreneurs on Fire,
Okay.
and he became extremely successful through the podcast, and then he created a course teaching other people how to do the podcast. And there's like strategic steps on how he takes people through his funnel, so I think that would be a perfect opportunity for you. And then Jeff Walker, he has a book called, I think it's just called Launch, but he essentially created the entire basis of the concept of launching a course that leads into a podcast, and it uses all the drip campaign methodology you learned today. So he's the number one. I would look at Jeff Walker, and
Okay.
because that, you gotta create all the content, but if you can pre-sell it, and there's ways to do that, where it's like, I'm going to create this, and these people will buy it, and then you go create it, and you create it based on what they told you they wanted, it
Yeah.
just makes it even better. So I would look at that, because I think that would be really helpful. But I would say for your drip campaign and nurturing, like, if people are, your goal is to get them into a group coaching class, right? So the drip campaign should start right at, before you, like, you don't wanna do the one-on-one, so you're not gonna email them anymore and saying, let's set up a call.
Right.
You would put them into your drip system, and it literally, maybe you're doing them once a month or twice a month, and it would, the drip campaign literally plugs them in at whenever they're plugged into, it would lead them to your next group coaching.
3-month one or whatever.
Exactly, yeah, so then you don't even have to work, you just put them in the system and it automates all of it.
Okay,
So that'll get you faster to that process.
perfect. Okay, I'll ask
No,
one
go
next
ahead.
time.
Go
I
ahead.
think the question that comes up for me is, to be able to collect those emails intentionally with their permission, to then be able to email them, right? Not just like, I wanna connect with you, let me meet with you, but more of like, yeah, put me on your newsletter or whatnot. I'm not necessarily able to say like, oh, 10% off, your lashes or something like that, as I'm thinking in that framework. How could I think about that in order to gain their contact information?
So it starts,
With a different, like,
yeah, so you change
Bite.
you change the conversation. It's like, oh my God, I'd love to help you out. I actually have a monthly session where I have a bunch of people just like you get together, and I help them figure this out. And I'm sure that you have some
I'd
knowledge
love
that
to
you can
keep
share with.
you
Yeah.
updated with
Yeah,
that.
like,
and
hey,
informed.
are you interested? I wouldn't even say I'd love to, I
Okay.
would like, are you interested in that workshop? And if
Okay.
they say yes, I'm like, cool, give me your email, I'll pop you in the system, and I'll let you know everything you need to know.
Okay, perfect.
And like, you just change the conversation a little bit.
So I
If
just
they're
need to
like,
word it differently. Right now I have a monthly networking event that I do, and it's once a month, the second Tuesday of every month, and so I think that could kind of be I'd love to invite you and keep you in the loop of
Yeah,
that and other
the
things that
next
I'm
one's
offering.
on this date. And I think you start with live
Okay.
because you're gonna learn a lot from that, and they don't really know you yet, so
Yeah.
you start with a lot, and this is, part of that process is, they call it it used to be a webinar, but it's like, they found out about you, they lead you into a webinar, some are pre-recorded, but the best ones are live. The live webinar just talks about the service that you're about to sell them
Gonna do.
later. You're basically pre-qualifying people, and then you follow up with a set, because you're like, I'm only gonna take 10 people, there's a whole system,
There's
I
a
can
whole
talk to you for
strategy.
hours and hours and hours, I'm
Yeah,
very familiar
I've been
with
on the
this.
other end of that.
Yeah, you've seen it, so just
So
do
just
you're
do
doing
that.
the exact same thing. And Jeff Walker's kind of created that whole process. And so if you just do that, that'll work. And then what becomes really cool about that is your workshop is $100, and you're like, because you're like, I don't want to do one-on-ones anymore. But if somebody's like, no, I need your help now, guess what? I'm way more expensive.
Okay. Okay.
And so it's like, now you can join the workshop and they're gonna be like, oh, this is really helpful, and it only cost me $100.
Right.
And then the next time you come out with the next thing they need, they're like already like a fan of yours, they're gonna buy it
Okay.
again. And so Pat Flynn calls this raving fans. You're creating raving fans, basically give you money and say thank you.
Okay.
Right? So
love it.
you've gotta, but that's where you can get to the point, you've gotta set all that system up.
Yeah.
It's gonna take a long
Yeah.
time, so that's why I would
But
start
it
with.
seems like a clear roadmap.
Start with, I'm gonna do this once a month or twice a month, figure it out, put it in the schedule, I'm doing it doesn't matter, if nobody shows up, I'm gonna be there.
Yeah.
And you just do it until people start showing up, and so it starts working, and then essentially it becomes like, oh, well, if you need the one-on-one with me, it's $5,000.
Okay.
And some people go, I don't care, you know, here you go, help me, I
Okay.
need it now, cause
Okay.
I do that now, where I'm like, I don't have time to learn all of this, just tell me the secret.
Yeah, okay.
You know, so, yeah,
Perfect.
sorry, we went down a
No,
rabbit
that
hole
was the
there.
problem that I was thinking through, so thank you for helping me
Yeah.
with that one.
Yeah, and there's like Mike Kim is one of my favorite marketers on the planet.